Thanks so much, everyone, for being here for today's session. My name is Noah Newman. I'm technology editor with Precision Farming Dealer, and excited to have today's session with DigiFarm from guidance to intelligence, how RTK enables better data collection. So our presenters today have a combined 45 plus years experience in the agriculture and ag technology field. They are Gwen Lewis, DigiFarm General Manager, and Steve Riddle, DigiFarm Eastern Sales Consultant. So great to have everyone here with us. And without further ado, Steve and Gwen, I'll toss over to you.
Thank you, Noah. Appreciate the great introduction there. And we want to welcome everyone to the webinar. So our webinar today is from guidance to intelligence, how RTK enables better data collection. So over the years, we have seen a difference in the role that data is playing in precision agriculture. So we're going to take a look at, where we've been, where we're at now, and where things are going. So we know a lot of people kind of fall in the middle there on where we're at now. So we want to bring to you information on, what does that look like going forward? What are the emerging markets? Who are the partners that you need out there in the field? Because we do see the landscape changing. So we want to welcome everybody. I thank you all for joining. So like Noah said, I'm Gwen Lewis. So I've been with DigiFarm for about 2 years now, just about. And I spent about 15 years in wireless. So in the cellular world, working a lot with data, and the IoT world is that all blends together with what is going on in precision agriculture. So it's very interesting to kind of see it all come together and seeing those different industries and worlds work together. Steve?
Yes, thank you. Steve Riddle here, and I'm the Eastern U.S. sales rep for DigiFarm. 7 years here at DigiFarm, and lengthy ag history. The fun part about my role today is I've been about 17 years in between 10 years at Raven and then 7 here with DigiFarm, but I've got about equal time on the dealer side prior to that. So, more shoes where it was boots on the ground, direct sales, and engaged with growers, and still involved with that today as well. And so thankful to be in the industry and hope to be valued to you guys today with the presentation.
Excellent. Thank you, Steve. This is awesome. All right, so these are the things that we are going to take a look at today. How do we get better data? And really, what is the role of RTK? So DigiFarm has a private RTK network across the United States and into Canada, and that is everything we do. So we build that network. We are really set out there to make sure that the quality of data that is coming through is what is needed out in the marketplace. So RTK, we're going to see, really plays a foundational role in getting better data and utilizing that data. So we're going to take a look at the evolution of precision ag and really, the path to full autonomy. That's where things are going. And, what role does that data play in that, and the quality of it being very high is very important the further we move along through the process. Why accuracy matters more today. So there's a lot of data-rich applications that are out there. We're seeing a lot more software out there, and everything that it's built on, accuracy is very important. So we'll take a look at RTK versus GPS and, what difference that does make in being very precise, how that impacts your bottom line. The data life cycle. So we'll take a look at, where does the data start from the collection process all the way through the analysis. And we'll look at, again, really why that quality of data is so important in that life cycle. And then we'll talk a little bit about emerging technologies and some of the new technologies that we see out in the industry. We see ag expanding into, there's different equipment coming in. There's different opportunities for dealers out there. And we really want to talk through some of those opportunities, what we see, with some of the partners that we work with, as well as just what's happening out in the marketplace.
So with the evolution of precision ag, just to touch on briefly, early introduction, which I was a part of through the equipment side with GPS guidance light bars, and we were really looking at minimal accuracy and minimal data, and really that a lot of that in my experience was driven with some of the fertilizer applications, starting to get into variable rate technology on fertilizer application. I was involved with ag chem equipment with the soil election units and some of the early adoption of that. And that was somewhat rudimentary, but then we got into the your basic auto steer. There again, a lot of it just even pre-WAS, running Coast Guard beacon signal and or maybe there even was some satellite corrections, but very, very basic on the data side. If that, and it was more about just the more of a typical app. There again, a fertilizer application or a basic auto steer, and that was enabling the growth into section control. And we were just happy that we could get a sprayer, a 90-foot boom with 5 sections to turn. It would turn off on its own, and would also remember to turn those sections back on as equally as important. But again, very basic on the really of any data collection. If it was at all, it was, and it still was just about where have we been, not necessarily what did we do. And then getting into the, some of the higher accuracy with RTK, and then yield mapping into the, 2010s, maybe even a little before, but really starting to grow and gain some importance. I remember Ag Leader had a slogan that I still think it was pretty good. And it was something to the effect of, how do you know where to go if you don't know where you've been? And so that still holds true today. And so, just early adoption with yield monitoring and to where that's grown today. Where we're at now, it seems like every pass through the field, there's data being collected. Now, what do we do with it? And then that's another piece that's changing. But every step through the field today is performing a task, but that task is being recorded, and more so of just where we've been. It typically is involving some sort of an application most of the time. And where this is all leading is to somewhat where we're there now, but just scratching the surface into full autonomy and robotics, and that data collection is really driving the force behind that, and where this is going to go ahead and go here.
So why accuracy matters more today than ever? So what Steve was just talking about, as far as where we were, where we are, and where we're going, we see that really modern ag today is really data driven. A lot of what's being talked about out there is the data behind it and the software. What can we do with that? What are the analytics behind that? And what kind of decisions can be made with that data? And so it's really not just operational anymore to guide the machines. So modern operations today really depend on a multi-layer stack approach. We look at you can see that on the right side there. But we have a lot of layers now that are added in there. So as we continue on with more precise applications and new software out there, I think we're going to see more layers added in there. And the representation we have here is specific to drones in the industry, and they have that imagery layer in there. And what's interesting about that is when you're doing work with all of your equipment out in the field, you want all of those to be working off of the same RTK network. So if you have, your tractor working on our network, you want your drone working on our network. And one thing that I guess is unique about DigiFarm is we are a completely universal network. So we can work with any piece of equipment that's out there. But that becomes even more important as we go along and we see the industry evolve with, the drones are a big part of what we're seeing now. And we're going to look at some growth projections here in a little bit, but that is where the ag industry is projected to grow the most, is in drones. So how do you incorporate that and have all the tools in place that are necessary for your growers out there and for your staff, just depending on what services dealers are all looking to provide? It's really important that we find ways to make it easier and more efficient. And, as we look at the data, every decision, like Steve said, you're collecting data really at every point. You're planting, you're spraying, you're harvesting, everything begins with that positional accuracy. So if you're off from the beginning, really it's bad data throughout your whole process. So we really focus on giving you that quality data, helping people understand, what is the importance of RTK, and is it a nice to have, or is it a necessity at this point? Because all of the decisions that are being made off of that data are not going to be at the place you want them if your data quality is not where you want it from the get-go. So really, RTK is ensuring that you have repeatability and that data you can trust. The more accurate you get really in anything that we're doing out there, the more precise we can be, the better our results are going to be. So, I think we've seen that just evolve over the years with RTK. And like I said, it's become something that's necessary out there if you really want those decisions that you're making to be impactful at the end.
Okay, and looking at the information on the slide here, RTK versus GPS, the data difference. If we look at the application, the first application, auto steer and guidance, and I think what I've got down here is that really with RTK and sub-inch accuracy, auto steer today, very commonplace for your grower customers to have auto steer on equipment. And one of the conversations you're having when they're looking at new equipment or upgrading is what accuracy level are they looking for or need? And in turn, we're going to turn this into some data conversation here. But really today, I think that conversation that still exists, but that auto steer and guidance, just the redundancy of talking about, we're not going to have line shifts, coming back and being able to repeat a pass, working in dark and dusty conditions. But if we look at today's conversations that are more relevant, it's really a lot about some of the newer conversations, that we're talking about robotics, and autonomous equipment. It's almost considered be considered a requirement. But those guidance lines are important as well with RTK. And if we look at some of the maybe fresher conversations, it's about, in-season nutrient applications, maybe interplanting cover crops, next season crop strategies, and whether you're using that existing line or shifting and making those next applications. Just trying to keep that fresh. The drone mapping, even if you're not selling drones, I think drones is something that most people are paying attention to, and drones from the RTK standpoint, do they really need RTK when they're spraying fungicides? That's really the question I get, a lot. But we look at going back to that mapping aspect, if they're doing multispectral imagery drones, just the resolution and the mapping and the data that's being collected. Your boundaries are important because then they become your obstacle avoidance boundaries, and they're not shifting and moving. And and this is enhancing your landing features. So we see drones and that mapping aspect as an important tool. And when you get to looking at drones, we think there's a lot of redundancy of drones being offered out there, but how they tie in with different mapping and APIs is I think one of the interesting things to look at, because they are starting to play a more important role. And precision application, with RTK and precise zone targeting, we look at the equipment today out there, planters, individual, row, control and seed rate and shed off, and individual sprayer nozzle control. Yield mapping can be done where it's breaking up that header or the corn head, in smaller zones, almost to the row. And then we go look at fertilizer applications. If a guy's strip tilling, maybe we're shutting off, more true to smaller sections. But even today with prescription applications and variable rate, I guess what I call your dry fertilizer spreader spinner box, those are very accurately today spreading fertilizer 80, 90 foot and coming out with some really amazing pan tests. And they've even got capabilities on some of these units today to get into some section control. So I think where this is headed, as we get into prescription mapping and the aspects of that is the smaller zones. And so when we're variable rate applications, especially on fertilizer, I can only see that those zones get more targeted. They're going to get smaller. Your displays can handle the smaller zones, where before maybe that was a hindrance. But so everything today is getting into a more precise zone targeting and smaller zones or smaller grids. And that's where RTK really comes in. Do soil types change that dramatically through the field or that often? Probably not, but the analytics and data, it's there that it can analyze it in those smaller zones. So I think that's an expectation that we should watch for and be talking about. Yield mapping, a true performance measurement. I think what sticks out here, there's some obvious ones, when you get into mapping yield data more true to the, when you're coming in on a header or a corn head and you're coming into, your end rows at an angle, and, how they're feathered off more true to where the rows are, much like that of the planter rows. And really what I think what's driving this is, and something important to talk about, is getting more accurate raw data from the beginning, and then that helps with less cleanup, so it's more usable data right from the beginning. And I think with yield mapping, that's where the industry is going, and we can anticipate that. The other thing with yield mapping, there's a lot of food type harvesting that's done today that, whether it's through regulation or the industry demanding uh, that accountability from field to fork, or the field to your plate, traceability. Um, there again, it could be considered overkill in some aspects, but in some crops and some harvesting, that's more of a requirement, and something else I think that we can be paying attention to, and and has some value. There again, it's all about more accurate data collection on that. So, um, what about AI and machine learning?
So AI and machine learning models, as I talked about before, the better your data, the better your output. So garbage in, garbage out. I was talking to someone in the research community, and they said no data is better than bad data. So as we look at, what can RTK do for you, really it's going to make that data more reliable. You can trust that data more, but AI is really being used in so many different ways. And as far as data classification, and Steve was talking about the data cleansing, doing a lot of that, organizing and indexing all of that data that's out there, storing that and really understanding the pattern recognition and correlating that to reflect reality that's out there and in the applications that it's being used in. As far as those applications go, as you look at AI is really being tied to machine performance. So it's making adjustments as it goes along. It can see what some of those patterns are, and it can help you along. I was just reading an additional article on some new stuff that's coming out, but they really talk specifically about they talked about AI being, a lot in the cloud. So a lot of it's on the software and what's happening, but really bringing it straight into the cab and making more of those things happen on the spot. So again, I think we're going to see a lot more applications coming to market, software companies, equipment even out there. So autonomous equipment that's a hot market too. As far as all of your robotics that are out there in we're seeing a lot of them. In the fields, there's a number of different companies out there who are out there doing many different things from the precision ag piece. So we're looking at, plant health and field health, all kinds of different data points that they're collecting for things that probably, I would say 5 years ago, we didn't even really know existed. So it's really just been a big explosion on what can be done with that, both through AI and all of the autonomy that's going on out in the marketplace. And really, without RTK on autonomous equipment, I don't think we really want to be using it without RTK. We want to be as precise as we can just for, the safety of it all, first of all, because it's all unmanned. But, we will see that market really just keep growing. And the more they can do from the autonomous side and the better they can get AI to be out in the marketplace, the more we will see that grow. And so, really the data that the dealers, the end users, everything that's being collected now and being used is really being used to feed a better AI. AI is one of those pieces that people either love it or hate it. I feel like there's, some people who have dove a lot into it just to really see what it can do for them. Some people are shying away, maybe because they don't know a lot about it, or, they don't know how it can help them yet. But those are definitely areas that I absolutely see things growing. So as I said, the data that's being fed to them now that is helping them learn, because AI learns on consistency. So it needs to see those things over and over and be able to make those decisions. So that data really does have to be true high quality data that's going in, feeding back out, poor information to you to make decisions on. So we'll take a look at the data lifecycle here. So, all the way from collecting that data, like Steve has talked a lot about that, out in the field with the different applications, really to that intelligence piece. So it's in a different place than it was 15, 20, 25 years ago. So really why RTK matters in all of this is all about, your accuracy, your alignment, making sure everything stays consistent. You're going to see the word consistency a lot when we're talking about things like applications and intelligence. And this leads a lot into, the AI and machine learning piece. But really, it's keeping everything aligned, keeping everything very consistent so things match across all of your sources. And RTK, makes that multi-year AI model accurate year over year and really supporting that long-term automation. So we look at, the collection of the data, the storage of the data, analysis through the application, all the way to intelligence. So the reality is the data that you're collecting is being used to make decisions. And those decisions are only as good as the data that you're putting into it.
So kind of focusing on the dealer opportunities, and then we kind of benchmark this with a timeline and really the dealer opportunity over the years. We've been at various stages, but if we look at the dealer opportunity today, obviously from clear back in the 90s, we were excited for the equipment sales side as new precision products came on the market, which were basic, maybe just even guidance light bars. And, with no data capability, that equipment sales today is so much more. And even if we're not heavily engaged with, data collection at your dealership, at the end of the day, there's a lot of decisions on hardware being made and purchased because of its data collection capabilities. So I think we all, one way or another, get drug into equipment sales that pertains to its capabilities of data collection. And I think it's important for us to understand those capabilities. Not that we need to, if you don't offer it, but certainly something to pay attention to and be more, aware and conscientious of its aspects. I know as technology grew, we're getting into auto steer, section control. There again, it may have been just mapping where you've been. The dealer opportunity was that basic display setup. And, and we all worked hard, and you guys all work hard at calibrations and machine setup, still today on those installations, new machines, and doing that. But I think the other side of that is because today most all that equipment is also used for data collection. Are we setting it up properly also for that data collection side? Is there anything different? There's the performance from the steering and the accuracy of the fore and aft and look aheads and everything on section controls and planner shutoffs and everything. But from the data collection side, are we getting everything set properly and optimizing, maximizing what can be done? There again, turning that initially raw collected data into more usable data right out of the gate. I think that's important. RTK yield mapping, as we started, we're getting into more layered field data, back some not that long ago, and even still today. There again, if you're not the agronomist that's analyzing that data, that all falls back on its raw capabilities, being set up and performance, and in your combine setup, for yield and all the other aspects of mapping. Um, we're well beyond the mapping of just where you've been. It's all about what you're doing and the application itself and rates and elevation and all those things. So there again, that RTK aspect and getting the setup proper to get, as Gwen's referenced often, there was garbage in, garbage out. So make it accuracy in and accuracy data to work with. Drones, sensors, AI, analytics, there's so many different APIs out there today and integrations. From the equipment dealer standpoint, data services and subscriptions we've got noted. I think there's always hesitation and that and we hear about it, that the grower customer is they don't want they're not fans of subscriptions and what are we getting charged for. And I think it's important for us and for everybody to understand, be able to explain the value and the ROI that each of those services that you're providing. Well, we may bundle them, but at the end of the day, there's all the line items of what are they. So nothing's ever really hidden anymore. It's I think guys want to know what they're getting, what they're paying for, and what's its value. And we got to talk positively about those because it's important information. The data collection side, the annual subscriptions. It's where the market has gone, but it's a revenue. It's an ROI generator, and when we partner with dealers, we're enabling that the reoccurring revenue that a dealer can make, through our DigiFarm services, the RTK, and that's no different than many of the other products and services that are out there. So we're often bundled or align with dealers, other things that they're doing, and maybe it's annual machine inspections, and a lot of that is updates on software updates on displays and cleanup of displays of previous year's data and doing that. So that's all really important to embrace and talk positively about and be able to be open and work with your customers. It's start off as kind of a challenging topic with some of the growers, but at the end of the day, help them make better, best decisions for their farming practices. And where are we going with this? The emerging markets with the dealer opportunities. We're looking at autonomy, robotics, all the different AI, and analytics that are out there today. From a dealer perspective, it's just no different than the grower. Things happen and come on the market faster and change quicker, where it's hard to sit on the sidelines and watch. And so we've got to trust that they're not all on the bleeding edge and that that there's fit for it. The growers are looking for trusted advisors, and so as the precision dealer, it's they're reading about all the new technologies and you as the trusted advisor, it's we offer that quality RTK corrections, and our dealers are out there as the grower's trusted advisor, helping sell our services. And it's no different than with other precision products and new technologies that come on the market. So that's the dealer opportunity, as things change, is staying up on everything, and where does it fit, and and is it something that you get engaged with? And if not, I think a lot of this is stuff that we've got to pay attention to. At the end of the day, it's engagement and um, opportunities with your customers. So, all right.
So lastly here, we'll look at, the emerging markets, and like Steve was talking about, those dealer opportunities. So, it's past more than just being, an equipment dealer. And, the bundled packages is with service, training, with different pieces of equipment is what we're seeing a lot of out in the market. And those look at where the market's going to go, right? I talked earlier a little bit about, the drone market, and that is projected to grow somewhere between 20 and 25%, just depending on which you look at, in the next 5 years. But even next year, they're at over 20%. And so that is really just a huge opportunity for, equipment dealers out there, precision dealers. Where can you get more customers and, gain that stickiness with them, that they become more loyal to you? So the more they can buy from one place, more loyalty you have. But if you have those different service offerings or equipment offerings, that may be something that keeps your customer base more loyal to you, but also brings in additional customers. As Steve said, the whole trusted advisor piece is so important, especially as we get into, all of this data and AI and analytics, and what does that all mean? A lot of it can be very, very intimidating for folks. And so it's important for us to be that trusted advisor to our dealers, because we do know that is what they have to do with their customers. And so the better partner we can be, that just makes everybody better out there. So, we really ask people to, reach out to us, give us your ideas, what is going on in the marketplace, and how can we help? We'll always bring the quality network, but we work in, a lot of other industries too. We touch with our RTK network. So, we see RTK expanding, beyond farming. We've talked a lot about, and drones are kind of that crossover. So, they're in the commercial space, but then also in that precision ag space. But surveying and turf, robotics, those all play a role in ag somewhere. And, it's just interesting seeing the markets grow and the movement that's out there, because there's a lot of movement going on right now. A lot of companies out there, coming to market with different products and different really value points. And it is sometimes it's hard to weed through all of that. And so, like I said, we really want to help people where we can. And if, we can help introduce people in different markets, we will absolutely do that too. We have a big network, like I said, outside of the ag world, and we want to be the best partner that we can be across the board. So as the dealer opportunities, like I said, if you're looking at bundling different things together, I mean, we talk to people all the time about different setups that dealers have that's working for them, because some of this is new for people. And as much as the data and the AI, all that can be very intimidating for the grower. From the dealer perspective, these new opportunities and, putting different service packs and bundles into place, that could be intimidating too. So we're glad to help people, understand what other people have done in the marketplace that works. We're really here to see everybody win. So that is emerging markets and additional dealer opportunity. So that's all we have from a presentation standpoint. I don't see any questions in the chat. Noah, do you see any questions in the chat?
No, nothing now, but now's the time
Okay.
to get them in. If anyone there in the audience has any questions for Steve or Gwen, Q&A box, bottom of your screen, you could type those in and we can get those answered. But yeah, you guys covered it really well. That was a great presentation. And, if anyone in the audience wants to share it with other people at their dealership or coworkers, we'll actually have a recording of this presentation posted on precisionfarmingdealer.com within about 48 hours or so. And we'll also email you a recording of the presentation. That should be in your inbox also within about 48 hours or so. But yeah, not seeing any questions right now. You kind of answered it there, Gwen, but just what are some important steps or things that dealers can do to kind of prepare to be able to offer those data services that all this new technology is going to require? Anything come to mind? I know that's a tough question. You could probably spend several minutes answering, but
I think there's probably, a good possibility that all the attendees on here, represent some brand or breed of make model of GPS, and whether it's auto steer or tied to an OEM equipment and stuff, that within what they've currently got today, that there's probably certainly data collection capabilities. And so I'd like to look at, first, what have I already got that am I maximizing what its capabilities are? Are we marketing it correctly? Are we meeting the expectations? Are we using it? Are they helping their customers use those devices to their full potential? And then the other side of that would be, is there anything that sticks out, that their customers are asking for, that maybe they're not able to fulfill? And is that, where does that align with anything that's there again, if it's in the precision ag field, it could be something that's going to be data related, and where does that fit? And probably lastly, if there's intimidation, and there's certain times and products that you hear the phrase, "I know enough to be dangerous," or the intimidation, but there's always somebody that in the ag industry, we all know so many people that, we're a well-connected industry. And so I think there's always somebody, if I don't know an answer, I know somebody probably that can answer my question. And so is there somebody that I need to, if there's an area that I myself or you yourself are feel like you need to grow your knowledge on, how can you do that? And so I think that would help also. If you're not, just to be able to be better aware of opportunities out there. So it's often who we know, and are they people that we can lean on and learn from, and look at it from that aspect. So that'd be my advisement, I guess.
I'm going to just add a little bit to that, and that goes to, the whole network piece, and not our network, not our RTK network, but your people network. Find good partners out there. I mean, that's really one of my biggest pieces of advice is, I think we're a great partner. But like I said before, we really want to, we want to help people learn things that they don't know about. If we work with a different industry, we work a ton in the drone space, and I know that is new to some precision dealers, and people have questions about it, but I mean, we'll help hook you up with people who know all kinds of things about it out there, and what's going on out in that marketplace. But I think that is really where that real leverage is in the people, tapping into your network, talking to people, and even if it's getting together and having some brainstorming sessions with some different people, or evaluating what's going on, what's working and what's not, I mean, it's really important out there in the like. So your network be my advice.
Speaking
Yeah.
of speaking
go
of
ahead.
Network, yes.
speaking of networks, looks like there was a question came in asking, and so I'm going to assume that this attendee has looked at the DigiFarm coverage map on our website at digifarm.com, and then there's a tab for coverage. So that is we'll call it a live coverage map of our RTK correction network. And they're saying they're in Brandon, or they reference Winnipeg. And so probably the best to do that would be to maybe reach out to myself or Gwen, and we can validate, start a conversation of where you are located, and in the radius or area that you would potentially be operating within, and we can take a look at that. So at DigiFarm, we're growing as we speak. We've got base stations being added, continually to grow our network. We don't sell base stations, but given the opportunity, we'll make that happen. So it's just a process to talk through and validate and see what we can do. So for that question, whoever asked that, or if anybody else, just email either Gwen or I or both, and we'll continue that conversation. Thank you.
All right. Thanks for that. I think we can go ahead and start to wrap things up. Look forward to continuing the conversation about data management, autonomy, drones, AI, and all that at our Precision Farming Dealer Summit, which is coming up in January 5th and 6th in St. Louis. I'm sure these will all be hot topics there.
Yeah, we'll be there as always as a proud sponsor of that event. So thank you, Noah, for that mention.
Well, thank you guys so much for this presentation. Again, if you want to get a hold of Gwen or Steve, there's their contact information on the screen there. And again, we recorded this, so this will be available on precisionfarmingdealer.com and also the Precision Farming Dealer YouTube page. If you want to go back and rewatch it or share it with other people at your dealership, coworkers, friends, anyone that you think this would really benefit. So, Steve, Gwen, any last words before we go our separate ways here?
Thank you for the opportunity, and thanks everybody for taking the time.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Hope everybody has a great day.
All right. On behalf of DigiFarm and Precision Farming Dealer, thanks so much for tuning in, and have a great day. We'll see you soon.